What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. Today we've got a special video for you. I'm welcoming my good friend Primetime Mitch Cassidy to E-Nerdtainment. Once again, we're going to be talking about a classic, a movie that came out in 2006. I completely missed the boat on this. This was right after I graduated, and I didn't see it until about 8 or 9 years ago, and this movie's an absolute blast. If you've never seen it, stop this video right now. Go watch this movie. Please do yourself a favor. Watch the movie blind like I had the opportunity to, because the first watch, it's one of those movies where the first watch is absolutely the best watch. But this is a love letter to horror movie fans, hardcore horror movie fans, and me and my friend, we're going to talk about it a little bit. We're going to jump right into it. So I hope you all enjoy this video. Thank you very much. Have a great day, y'all. I'm really excited. I saw that you were watching this movie a couple weeks back, and I knew we had to talk about it, brother. This is a classic.
It's definitely got a massive cult following, I
For
know
sure.
that much.
For sure.
What was your first introduction to this movie?
It wasn't, I know when we talked recently, I told you I watched horror movies back as soon as I started walking, way before I probably should
Yeah.
have. I was late to the party on this one. I didn't see this until probably 2015, 2016. So, a little less than 10 years ago, well after it came out. I missed the boat completely when this movie came out. But I watched it. I went into it how I would hope that anybody could, completely blind. I knew, and I mean, Mitch, absolutely nothing about this movie other than the poster looked interesting. He looked kind of cool looking. I didn't realize that it was like a mockumentary, documentary style movie. When I jumped into this movie, man, I knew 5 minutes in, I was hooked. I was hooked.
Well, I think I was even later than you. I knew about it, and it was always an intention to watch it. It's just one of those, it keeps passing you by. Oh,
Yeah.
geez, I forgot to schedule that, or I forgot to fit that in. And so it was a long time coming, but I was so fascinated mainly by the premise. And by the way, guys, spoiler alert, I should have said that at the
Yeah,
beginning,
we're
but I'm
definitely
saying it
diving
now.
into spoilers here. So go watch the movie and then come back and watch this.
Yeah, if you like if you like the idea of this and you haven't seen it, I urge you to go see this movie. The link's again in the description below. Please go check it out and then come back and watch what we have to say about it. It'll be far more interesting that way around.
Because it's interesting. The first question I wanted to ask you was, how would you best describe this movie, spoiler free, to a horror fan? So if you do that, maybe you can give them kind of a little taste of what they're in for.
I would say it is a documentary that exists in a world when all your favorite movie serial killers
Are real.
exist.
Exactly.
And I think that that's what pulled me into it. Somebody said, "Oh, this is set up in a time when Freddy and Jason and Michael are all real, and it's a real world thing."
Yep.
And that I was like, "Oh my god, that I've got to see that." That,
Yep.
that was all they needed to tell me.
Sure.
And I love that. I love a bit of meta every now and again, and I think that's as meta as it gets,
Oh,
really.
for sure. Oh yeah, this goes beyond Scream, and that was another thing I wanted to bring up was obviously if you're talking about meta and horror, you can't not bring up Scream.
No.
Do you think that this movie does as good a job of paying homage to like the horror movies of the past? Is it even in that same kind of stratosphere for you, or what is your feeling? I guess as far as legacy and what the movie does for us as fans.
I think it absolutely does. I think what it does, well, it does two things really. I mean, you talked about you can't talk meta without bringing up Scream.
Right.
I always go a couple of years back and talk Wes Craven's New Nightmare
Yeah.
because
Sure.
it was a movie within a movie,
Yep.
and
That was
that
his
sort of
testament
sets
for
up,
it. Absolutely.
yeah, and that sets up Scream. So then we've got these two fantastic meta films that have actually given us more leeway now to play around with that.
Right.
And this movie just absolutely grabs hold of every idea and uses it. And I think it does a wonderful justice to slashers, to horrors of old, because by Leslie Vernon in the movie sort of describing how he's going to go about things and talking about how he's going to set things up so this happens and that happens. What it does is it actually makes a really good excuse for slasher movie tropes,
Exactly.
and it sort of lessens the critics, I think.
I would agree with that. I like that as opposed to Scream. Scream, exists in a world where the killers don't exist, but the movies do. The characters were aware of Jason in all these movies, and they make fun of the tropes. They make fun of the tropes, and that's kind of the shtick. Is we're aware of how silly these things are. Leslie Vernon goes a million miles further than that. Like you said, they explain, you know, he's out there sawing the branches off so that the guys are, you know,
Yeah.
and he's like, I nail them and nail the windows shut, and like, don't they break them out? You would think that they do, but they're always on the second floor. It's so many funny little nods. You said like all the stuff that everybody rips apart. It explains why it happens. The fact that he's a cardio nut. That's one of my favorite lines of the entire movie.
Oh, you gotta be able to run like a freaking gazelle without getting winded. And plus, there's that whole thing of making it look like you're walking, and everybody else is running their asses off.
Oh, right.
Then I gotta stay with them.
Yeah.
It's tough, man.
Brilliant. But it's brilliant as well because he explains it in a world where the killers are real
Yeah,
and not in the movies. So no
exactly.
one's going, "Oh, it's just like the movies," or "Why did he do this in the films? Are you
Right.
copycatting the films?" He's actually explaining it in the world of the serial killer,
Exactly.
not in the world of the movie, and I think that's brilliant.
I love it. I love it. I love it. What's your you have a favorite like Easter egg or cameo or scene that jumps out to you in the movie? I mean, it's nothing but, you know, a love letter to the fans. So it'd probably be tough to limit to just one, but is there something that stands out to you?
Do you mean Easter egg in terms of like a bit of a nod to things
Yeah.
before?
Yep. Yep. Like for
I
me,
would
I love the lament configuration sitting on Eugene's desk when he goes to meet Eugene and his wife. You just see it there. I thought that was a nice little nod. And I also love that his turtles were named Church and Zoe after the two resurrected animals in Pet Cemetery. I
that's
love that little nod too. So those were two of my favorites.
do you know what? I'm absolutely it's an honest channel. I'm ashamed. I didn't even notice that one.
It's you got it's right in the beginning of the movie, and it goes by so fast. But as soon as he said Church and Zoe, I love Pet Cemetery. Both of those
Yeah, it's
movies
a great movie.
are
Yeah.
just huge. I'm a huge fan of this movie. I'd love to talk to you. We could cover those one day. But
Yeah.
that was a wonderful. It's literally in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Church and Zoe, so good. I love it.
Well, I'm glad I know about that one now. Mine is actually the Robert Englund's character's name,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Doc Halloran. Basically, just taking both the characters of Shining,
That's it.
dropping them together.
I
Absolutely.
forgot about that. And then of
Yeah.
course he's modeled 100% after the great Dr. Loomis. I mean,
Oh,
his
Loomis.
beard,
Yeah.
his ensemble. He is the Ahab. He's the Doctor. There's so many of those moments. I love. Oh, crap, what's her name? Zelda from is it Poltergeist or the little lady? This was unfortunately the last movie she made. Zelda Rubinstein. She was
Oh,
the
yes.
librarian.
Yeah, she was brilliant.
Yeah.
And my partner really likes her as well. She was like, "Oh, I'm so glad she's in it." But
That was
yeah,
lovely. I was hoping to see crap, what's her name? Angela from Sleepaway Camp. I love she's made like kind of made like a resurgence as far as like coming into cameos and whatnot. That
yeah.
would have been really cool to see her too. But anyway,
To be honest, there was if I was going to say one sort of slight downside is I thought there would be more
yeah,
cameos.
I agree.
I think, like for example, like Kane Hodder, he appears in it for like what
Right.
all of about five
3
seconds.
seconds, yeah. Did you
Yeah, and
notice
I
that he
kind
was
of
living in Nancy's house?
in
Yeah,
1428
yeah,
Elm
yeah,
Street as well.
yeah, yeah.
Perfect. What a great combination that would be.
Lovely. That was one of my favorite cameos for sure.
I've got to
Let
ask.
me
I was going
see.
to say, Justin, I'll ask you. I'll ask you as well. Um, Robert Englund's character in this, you
Yes.
said how much he's modeled on Loomis and he
Mhm.
has those names attached. How important is a character like him in everyday horror? You know, that doctor who or that sort of expert that is trying to fight against the evil. That's just a random
I think it's
question.
imperative because Halloween doesn't work without Donald Pleasance. I mean, if you just have a psycho killer and a bunch of teenagers, where's the compelling? You have this guy who knows what you're dealing with, and that's what makes Halloween so scary. If you go back and you take him out of that movie, what does Michael Myers do that makes him this ridiculous freaking force of nature? It's
Mm.
literally Dr. Loomis. Dr. Loomis is preaching this guy the entire time. He's the epitome of evil. He's gonna kill everybody. It's that makes the movie so terrifying. It's how fearful this man is of this monster. So I think that you can't make these movies without that type of character. You know what I mean? The guy that knows what you're dealing with and is rightfully afraid of it.
I think it's what separates Halloween from Friday the well, from Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
I'm here like wearing the shirt, but
same.
I do think that Friday the 13th doesn't have that the guy
Yeah.
that's trying to protect because he knows what's going
Do you
on or
think it
the
ups the
but
stakes a little bit? Do you think it makes it feel a little bit more personal or real that there's actually somebody out there trying to save the day and it's not we're not just watching a butchering go on. You know what I mean?
I think it's scarier because if you have a protector there
Yeah.
that can't be heard, and he's doing, he's doing his best, but he can't stop this.
Right.
And especially as well, some of the dialogue when he comes out with like the blackest eyes,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and hell wouldn't have him, and those kind of things. He enhances the character. He's almost,
Yeah.
I'm a wrestling fan, so he's almost putting him over,
Oh, of
as I
course.
would say in the business.
He's the freaking Paul Heyman of horror characters.
Yes,
He is
exactly.
literally,
The
he's
advocate.
creating a god, and that's what he did.
Mm.
Is again, without Donald Pleasance, without those monologues, we just watch a dude kill 3 people, and it's kind of cool, but that's it. He
Yeah,
makes that movie for me.
I agree.
What do you think of the twist? What do you think of the twist of the movie? That
That she's the
that
one
she's
he's
the
after
target,
all along.
exactly. That Taylor was the target all along. I mean, obviously, if you're still watching this and you haven't seen the movie, we just ruined the best part for you.
You shouldn't be. We gave you a warning.
We gave you a warning, but 3/4 of the way through the movie, this movie for an hour and 15 minutes or so is shot documentary style from the POV of Taylor and her 2, camera crew people.
Mm.
And then about 3/4 of the way through the movie, they have a conundrum of conscience, and they have to step in and they insert themselves into the horror movie, so to speak. And then it kind of, she literally says the documentary is over, and they put the camera down, and like the entire shot changes, and okay, this is like almost like a Dusk Till Dawn switch where things just change.
I
The movie
love the
just kind of
shift.
changes. Exactly. So, and then from there you find out that this Curtis girl, Kelly Curtis, which is Jamie
Kelly.
Lee
Yeah.
Curtis's sister's name. That's another awesome little nod. Kelly Curtis is not the target. Taylor was the target the whole time. So, and I have to admit, some people said they saw it coming. I didn't see it coming. I knew that eventually they would probably step in and try to do something, but I had no idea that this was his plan all along.
I've got to say, and again, I'll be honest, I didn't see it, but I'm not very good with that. I'm like that with a lot of movies. I just don't see twists coming because I'm so immersed.
Yeah.
Do you know why I think I didn't see it coming? This is my reasoning for not seeing it coming, and I don't know whether it's anybody else's. For anyone else who's seen it, please drop it in the comments if that's the case. But I can't believe when I look back at it now, and certainly at the end when it's revealed, I can't believe I didn't realize just how, I don't want to say this, it sounds wrong, but I can't believe how I didn't notice how naive she was and
Yeah.
how potentially virginal she was.
Yeah.
Because all the way through it, she's the leader of this documentary idea. She's in charge of the crew. It's her idea. She's forefront. She's in charge. She's the boss. So you don't think about how vulnerable she may be or how naive she may be.
Right.
You just focused on who Leslie is focused on.
For sure.
And I think it's that shifting your attention from her that makes it better in the end.
Yeah, and it's an interesting watch to go back, and the twist. The second time you watch, you can kind of, like you said, pick up on some of the naivete. He's almost telling her in some scenes.
You know what? This is what I've chosen to do. So let's see it through.
Yeah, sweet. You're staying.
Welcome.
That this is happening. This is about to happen, and she just completely whiffs on it all. But
she doesn't look comfortable when he's almost borderline flirtatious, isn't he?
Yeah,
right, and
there's
she looks
some,
like,
oh yeah,
don't want any of that. But I always thought, well, she's obviously not going to feel like that if he's a
Yeah.
potential serial killer.
Right.
But it's not. I think it's a combination of who he is and also her lack of experience.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up a scene that you might not remember because I know you haven't watched it super recently, but the scene after they leave the diner, after the crew goes and speaks to Kelly and they come out and he loses his shit on her.
Oh yeah.
That is also one of my favorite scenes in the movie because that's the only time where you're legitimately afraid of Leslie. Nathan's ability to flip the switch and go from this lovable goofball, silly, funny guy that you can't believe is a serial killer to a dude that you really believe he might just snap her neck right there. And I love that scene. It shows you that, yes, this man might be nice. He might be different than you expect, but he's still very much about to do what he's saying he's going to do. And I don't know that they believed him until obviously he kills those first 2 people. And then they're like, shit, this is actually happening.
Well, I think that's almost the crew being in the same mindset as the audience. Is the audience probably think he's just a bluffer, he's a wannabe, he's all talk but he won't do anything.
Exactly.
And then you get this shift, and it's like, oh, well, now there's the horror.
Yeah.
aspect of it,
There
because
is.
this is a guy that is genuinely unhinged,
Right. He's disturbed.
and
He worships
yeah,
these guys.
and I think that that's what it is. I mean, every serial killer in sort of certain ways have a bit of a goofy tendency. I'm not talking Myers or anyone like that who's generally just
No, no, no.
he's almost a monster. He's that less of a man or less
Right.
of a human. But I'm talking people like people like Patrick Bateman and people like
Right.
that. They've got these quirks and things like that, but underneath is a serious problem. And I think they quietly peel that back and then suddenly rip it off in that
Exactly.
scene.
It's beautifully
Yeah.
done. It's beautifully done. I love the pace of this movie because I think that they could have easily rushed the first, part of the movie, the documentary part, and then gave us an hour of, the scares. I think they did it perfectly because the first part of the movie is my favorite part. All of the documentary
Mm,
stuff, peeling back, we get to see, unlike Scream, we don't learn much about the killers. Again, like I said, we just talk about the tropes, we make fun of them, we acknowledge that they exist, and we move on. This movie gives us a peek into the staging room. He even calls it his staging room. This is where I
mm.
hang out, and you get a behind the scenes look at what these guys actually do. It's really cool.
I think as well, when you look at the setting, it's in the world of there's a real Haddonfield, there's a real Springwood, real Camp Crystal, like all that stuff really exists. And he looks less of a threat because of just how detached the likes of Jason or Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers are from humanity. They are not. Yeah, it's like I just said before. I can't compare Michael because he's like
He's a monster.
he's not. He's barely human.
Yeah.
This guy is just a guy, and because he's got that goofy side to him, and he's trying to emulate these completely different entities, that's what makes him feel less of a killer up until that scene that you
Yep.
mentioned.
Yep.
I think it's because of the enormity of these guys he's trying to emulate. And also, this was my next question. I don't know if it's similar to one that you have, but what's your opinion on his mentor?
Oh, Eugene, I think that he's supposed to be the dude from Black Christmas. I read somewhere that I think he's supposed to be,
Billy.
yeah, Billy from Black Christmas, which
Mm.
which is kind of cool. I actually like that because then it makes sense, the Survivor girl. But I I'm thinking about, because I just watched the movie yesterday. I'm thinking about the scene where they go wake him up from being buried, and he's like, "What time is it? 3 o'clock? Tuesday? No, it's Thursday, man." So I love that whole sequence, and again, he goes back and he peels it back even further. He's like, "Man, Mike and Jason," the way he's like referring to them by their first name, like he literally goes to
Mike.
exactly like Chuck, Mike and Chuck.
Yeah.
He's talking to them like they're freaking coworkers, and he just went to a
Yeah.
convention with them the other day, and he's like, "They revolutionized the game by coming back like a curse." And I was like, "That's true because up until that we didn't have those recurring characters." So it was a really nice addition. I think he was a nice addition to the movie.
He's quite calm and sort of normal as well, isn't he? He's
Exactly.
just a normal guy. He's got a
Just a guy.
wife, and she's totally all right with it.
Did you ever
Which
watch
I thought was
Dexter?
strange.
Were you a fan of Dexter? Did you ever watch the show Dexter?
I watched the first two series. I tend to feel this way about some series. If it gets to I watch it initially and I like it. I was the same way with Peaky Blinders and
Yeah,
things like that. Is I watch the first two, but then when it gets a bit more elaborate because they need to have more ideas and they
sure.
need to be more original, I start straying away from it. Then I like the original premise,
Do me
but
a
if it goes
favor,
too far,
and anytime you have time, watch the first 4 seasons. You don't have to
okay,
watch anything after that. Continue and watch season 3 and season 4, because season 4 he runs into the Trinity Killer, which is, it's not a hot take to say that's the most popular season of Dexter, season 4.
oh, okay,
And the reason I brought it up, it doesn't make sense because you haven't seen it, but the Trinity Killer is, for all intents and purposes, a very normal man. And that's why Dexter attaches himself to him and wants to learn more about him, is because in this particular moment in the series, he's struggling to balance both sides of his life. So he sees this normal looking guy who moonlights as a killer and then goes home to his wife and kids, and he wants to figure that out. And I got a lot of that, feeling from Eugene, is the Trinity Killer from Dexter.
who plays that killer?
John Lithgow.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I must have watched more than two series then. Because
Yeah,
I had that in my head. I thought if he says John Lithgow here, then
yeah.
I have actually seen
That's
it.
all
Well,
you
in
need
that
to
case,
see. After that,
I've done four of them.
the show literally takes a shit. So you've seen the best of Dexter, but yeah, the
Yeah.
Trinity Killer reminded me a lot of that Eugene character from Leslie Vernon because, like you said, they feel so normal. They have a wife. You would assume they have children running around somewhere, grown
Mm.
children, but he's talking about murdering people, smiling, laughing casually like he just punched in for a 9 to 5. It's just, it was really unsettling, but also humorous in a weird black comedy kind of way.
I think sometimes that's more chilling when they normalize it, or it's just routine.
Yeah.
That, and when they just it's almost like he's smiling, he's positive about it. The other thing that scares me is when they're almost very matter of fact. There was a great movie called 10 Rillington Place. It's a British film with Richard Attenborough played the lead role, but then they remade it with Tim Roth as the lead guy.
I love Tim Roth.
And yeah, watch this. He is terrifying because he's doing these awful things, and he's done up as an old man, and he just sort of stands there going like, no expression on his face. Just I think it's best if everything's sort of just like calm and
Yeah.
reassuring. And he's the worst kind of monster you've ever seen. And it's either matter of fact or overly positive.
Right.
Both of those to me are more terrifying than maniacal.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, look at, again, this might just be my personal opinion, but if you put Michael Myers against Leatherface, I don't think it's a contest on who is creepier. Leatherface is scary because he's coming at you with a fucking chainsaw. But who is creepier? Who is legitimately creepier? The guy who's standing there with this blank, pale, emotionless face, and he's just staring at you, and you're like, what the hell's going on? Or this big hulking beast is running. I mean, again, they're both
I
scary.
think
Neither one are ideal.
well, I've always said the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to me is the scariest movie ever made because it's of the way it's presented,
Oh,
the
visceral.
situation.
Oof.
And I mean, I've never felt sorry for a character more than I do for Sally in that movie. I was dying for her to get out of that situation. But I think, going back to your point, I think Leatherface is scarier because of the environment he's in. You're out in the sticks. There's no one to look after you. There's no one to protect you, and
Can't
he is
run.
almost a big child that's just been trained to hurt people, and
Yeah,
that is scary in
that is
itself.
scary.
But I would say overall, if you're talking about what's frightening about a person in general, the black eyes, the
Yeah.
complete lack of motive or reasoning, that's definitely
And maybe
worse.
that's what I mean, more strictly visual. Like visually
Yeah,
speaking, the two side by side, I just think Michael Myers sends a chill down my spine. And it is because of
yeah.
that blank, pale, emotionless face, for
They
sure.
should never have shown his eyes through that mask. I
Oh,
stand by that.
don't even get me started, Mitch.
Yeah, let's not.
Brother. Oh my gosh. I am not a fan of any of that. Ugh. Oh gosh.
I know that's a whole different. I mean, I did a ranking of the Halloweens. I never actually mentioned that with the eye holes, and I really should have
Oh,
done.
I
But
did. Well,
yeah,
I did a ranking of Halloween movies, and I did a ranking of the actual iterations of Myers, and that was my main critique of Chris Durand in H2O was
yeah.
just too much
Well,
eye, too much eye.
yeah. Well, that scene is iconic and
Yeah,
fantastic with the portal,
yeah,
the round window.
yeah.
But if the eyes come out and it's just black holes, that's way
That's
better.
way better. Yeah, they again, I still love that scene. I still love that movie. I don't care what anybody says. I
Great
love
movie.
H2O. I love
Mhm.
H2O. I always will. But you're right. They definitely shit the bed with that, and mm, I'm getting sad just thinking about it.
Sorry.
It's okay. Because I also get depressed when I think about Halloween 4 and how great that movie could have
Oh,
been
oh
if they
no.
didn't butcher the mask on that.
I have a complete what's the word? A complete theory on that
Oh, okay.
that gets me through it. And I'll say it now because it's just an informal discussion. You get a little bit extra when you watch these
You
videos.
do, man. Hey, we're talking about horror movies. We this is all encompassing.
Absolutely. Basically, he's escaped again, and he's coming back to Haddonfield, and he goes to this store. Now, for some reason, this town is twisted enough to have Michael Myers masks on sale, even though he did what he did,
That's fair. Fair point.
and he has picked up a lousy knockoff of his mask because he couldn't have had the original one.
Right.
That wouldn't have made any sense for him to be there with that. I would have been questioning where the hell has he got his old mask from.
Sure.
He has picked up a cheap knockoff from the shop, and you see him grab it off the
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
rail,
Puts
don't
it
you?
on. It looks
So
shitty.
then from then on, I'm fine with that because that's the mask he's using because he can't use any other.
Right.
The one that didn't make sense was 5
Ah, yeah,
because that just materialized out of
yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
wrong there, and that might be the worst mask of the entire franchise. That's my least favorite Myers. If spoiler alert on my list, that's my least favorite Myers in the entire franchise is the Part 5 Myers, and a lot of it is because of the shitty mask, the flaring mask. It just doesn't look
Mm.
good. But
Especially when it's a continuation from 4, where
exactly,
he
literally
falls
picks
down
up.
into the water and he's got a new mask in that
Yeah,
space of time.
it
It's just
literally picks up exactly. It wouldn't be a big
yeah,
deal if you had a time jump or something,
yeah.
but the fact that it literally picks up from him falling down the well and then his silly little back float down the river always kills me. Oh my god. I don't even know. But you're not wrong. It fits the narrative. Obviously, like you said, it doesn't make sense that he would have his original mask. I just hate it. I hate
Oh,
the
yeah.
mask. I hate the shoulder pads.
But you can blame Haddonfield for that.
I'll blame Haddonfield then. Y'all shit the bed. So what's your final ranking on the movie?
I think you see, I struggle with rankings because I think somebody will say, "Well, why have you given that film 3 stars when you really like it?"
Yeah.
It's because my 3 stars, I could give that 3 stars. I go, "Really enjoyed that. Wasn't a lot wrong with it." But if I give it 5 stars, then that means it's as good as Jaws or or
Right.
Shawshank or something like that.
Right.
So I just I rank things as yes, I really enjoyed it. Not a lot wrong with it, but it isn't like a masterpiece.
Right.
I would say this. I'd I've no reason not to give it like an 8, a solid 8.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, because
Especially
it's not incredible, but it does its job so well. It's so original.
I had two rankings. I had for hardcore horror fans, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. For casuals, it's more like a 6 out of 10. If you're not
Yeah.
into like everything, every single trope, you're not picking up on all the little Easter eggs, laughing at all the silly jokes, you're not going to enjoy the movie as much as guys like you and me. But it was made
Mm.
for us. So
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's not a masterpiece. It's not Jaws. It's not Shawshank Redemption. But it's a really lovely, lovely movie. I had a great time. I can't believe that the lead actor didn't do more. Maybe he just didn't want to. But I
I
thought he
can't
was.
believe that.
But I thought he
He
was phenomenal.
he was brilliant.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. Is it Nathan
Nathan Basil, yeah, Nathan
Basil?
Basil,
That's yeah.
and I know he has a huge like theater background. He did a lot of theater, and then I believe afterwards he got into more behind the scenes stuff. But I just can't believe he didn't make another horror movie. And I kind of again, I wanted to ask you this: do you think this movie could have had a sequel, or is this a one-off through and through? Because they tease it at the end,
Oh,
obviously, with the credit scene.
oh, I think that is I mean, this movie is glorious satire. I think that's the biggest satire of them
Yeah,
all at the end.
yeah,
I think they really are just completely. It's borderline mocking that
that
bit,
part.
because there's no way he'd get up. But I think it could be a sequel, but it would need a totally fresh
Yeah,
take.
I agree.
I don't think you can continue that story.
I agree. That was
I
going to be
love
my point.
I love having a movie existing in a world where all the horror villains
Yeah,
exist, and I think you could have endless ideas thrown at that. But I certainly won't. I won't continue the Leslie Vernon
no,
story.
because
Maybe like an anthology sort of thing.
there you
Whereas
go.
the first one is the rise of Leslie Vernon, and
There
the
you go.
second one is somebody else.
Yep.
And yeah,
And if you do it, every 10 to 15 years or so, then you can hone in on the tropes of that time because obviously horror evolves. This very
Mm,
much made fun of a lot of the tropes of the 70s, 80s, 90s. Now we're into these elevated horror movies, that are focusing a lot more on supernatural elements. I think it'd be fun to, like you said, do another different, completely unique story and poke fun of some of that stuff and try to find a way to bring a little bit of comedy to that world. I don't know if it would be quite as easy because the 80s and 90s were inherently funny and campy, that kind of horror. So
yeah.
it was an easy segue to make a black comedy. But if they could find a way to do it and make it kind of compelling and interesting, that would be a hell of a movie.
Well, I mean, like you say, there's a lot of supernatural things now, and obviously, I mean, again, completely separate conversation, but I've already drip fed it onto a lot of videos. There's a lot of CGI stuff going on now, so maybe you could have some guy. He's got like a projector set up, and he's got all these images being like projected into the air, and it looks like it's a supernatural force, and really is just messing with
Yeah.
them. something like
Like
that.
some
But I
Scooby-Doo
do,
stuff.
yeah, like, yeah, and he's got, and now if we're talking tropes, he's got to like throw a cat in there or something just to
Of course.
terrify them, sidetrack them.
It's got to be a
I,
jumping cat somewhere. At least
yeah,
two. At least two.
it's got to work. I think it's worth a shout. That, I mean, you could do. It's not the first movie to satire to a degree.
No.
I mean, I suppose Monster Squad with the Universal
Oh
monsters
yeah.
was very similar in the terms of just bringing back
Yep.
stuff from the past. I'm wondering if you could satire that in any way, but you could have him like elaborately dressing up like something,
I agree.
some creature, and terrorizing people, and then just taking it off at the end of the day, and like, oh, they all bought it, and yeah, I don't know. It's a
I'd be
good
into it.
idea though.
I'd be into it. But I do agree. I think that you can't continue this story.
No, I mean, I just love that one of the little things. Just might as well mention it, but I love how when the movie shifts from documentary to actual movie, I love how they finally have a conscience. They're not interested in filming anymore. Hang on,
Yeah.
this might not be good. Maybe we shouldn't be filming
Yeah.
this.
Because I didn't
I
even
just
think about it, but he had already killed somebody. He kills
the
the librarian.
librarian, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So they kind of just, and they were like cheering. I forgot that they were like cheering after that. So yeah, like
yeah,
what changed all of a sudden? I guess maybe because they were so young. I don't know, but
maybe they could relate. Oh, it's only a librarian. Oh, he's about to kill kids of our age.
yeah,
Whoa, hang on, that
yeah,
ain't good.
exactly. Because it was weird that, like you said, they all of a sudden they just have a moral conundrum about what's going on, but very much up until that point, they're aware of the situation, and he does in fact kill somebody right in front of them,
Yeah.
and they don't get freaked out until he starts going after the young one. So it's a good
I
point.
mean, what would be cool? What would be a cool little sort of idea is if they saw him setting up all this stuff, and maybe they thought, oh, he's not really done it.
Right.
Maybe he's made it look like he has. Maybe this is all like just a big joke, and then they realize he's actually going to slaughter people. But I don't know.
And I think that could have been an interesting twist as well. Is
Mm,
don't show him actually kill anybody. Continue that. Is this guy full of shit? Because we would feel
yeah,
the same way. Is this guy really, or is he just insane? And then, like you said, kind of tease that he's probably faking all of this, and then show it real. And that would be a nice pull the rug out from under you.
yeah. I think it's an adaptation on what we talked about previously about his goofiness. Almost masks. It's almost like, well, he's too goofy to be a killer.
Yeah.
He's if he was like cold and calculated and telling us he was going to do all these things, and he didn't take any shit, and he was like, you don't ask him a question in case, he just looked at you funny, or he
Right.
looked you in the eyes, and I don't want to mess with this guy. But it's because he's goofy and quirky, and he's almost like hyperactive all the time,
Yeah.
isn't he, as well? And maybe that just takes away the fear factor until he actually does something.
You're not
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah. There's a lot to talk about, and really, it's you wouldn't think there was so much to delve into. Just a simple, almost found footage to begin with. Last part of it's a movie, and it's satire and horror, but you can really talk for hours on end about it.
It's the history, man, because this movie is a love letter. You hear that a lot. It's a love letter
Mm.
to the fans. This movie is a love letter to hardcore horror fans. That's all it is. And it brings so many memories, and that's why we can sit here and talk for hour about all of this shit, because it just brings back so many amazing memories and feelings, and it's just it's become one of my favorite yearly rewatches, honestly, since
I
I
think it's going
discovered
to
it.
be yearly from now on. I think now I've fully watched it and engaged with it. I'm like, yeah, this is. I might actually. It's probably going to be up on the shelf very soon. Put it that way.
Yep, it's one that I revisit very often.
Well, I think we've given enough there. I'm probably there's probably loads we missed out, but as a brief chat, it was pretty thorough.
Well, that's what the comments are for. You guys got to make sure you let us
Mm.
know. There were dozens of Easter eggs, stuff in this movie. There's probably stuff that we missed. So there has to be something that we did. Please comment down below and let us know, what was your favorite Easter egg? What was your favorite moment of the movie? What did we miss? I know we missed something. So that's the video, y'all. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Mitch, for coming and talking with me today. I had an absolute blast. This is such a fun movie to talk about with other horror movie junkies. So once again, always a pleasure. I hope you all enjoyed this. We'll do it again. If you like the video, please like the video. Let us know that you like these sort of collab videos that we're trying to do, and maybe we'll see some more in the future. So comment down below. Let me know if you've seen this movie, what your thought was, what your favorite, Easter egg character. What was your favorite moment from this absolute love letter to the fans, the horror fans, the hardcore fans. This is for us, guys. This is our movie. If you've never seen it, go watch it now. Thank you all very much. Be good people. Be good to each other. And we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.